LBC. From Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
I'm here in Manchester, and it's going to be a very big debate this week as to whether Mrs May can actually hold this party together and stay on as leader. But the issue above all, and I know we had Andrew Mitchell on from Royal Sutton Coldfield, their MP, telling us that there's going to be a big debate this week about what they're going to do about student fees and helping people to buy houses. And yeah, sure, all of this stuff will get debated. Other challenges to do with Social Security, all of that will get talked about. But there's no point pretending. This is all about Brexit and a party that has got some very, very deep divisions within it. Now, joining me now is Richard Tice, businessman and co-chair of Leave Means Leave. Richard, good morning.
Morning, Nigel.
Now, you join me hard on the heels of an article that you wrote in the Telegraph earlier this week, basically criticising the government's position, saying we need to get on with it. Just want to ask you firstly, I had Sir Bill Cash on the line half an hour ago, and he said it's all going wonderfully. The legislation's going through Parliament. Trust the Prime Minister. We should be jolly grateful that we are where we are. How do you feel about that?
Well, look, I think there's nothing wrong with optimism. He's sort of reflecting, in a way, Boris's optimism. But the reality is that everybody wants the government to get on with it. And the more people I talk to, whether they voted Leave or Remain, they can't understand why it's taking so long. And for many people, actually, why can't we just leave? And I think the really interesting debate now over the next few weeks will be how the EU responds to the Prime Minister's speech at Florence and frankly, the concessions she made without asking for anything. And if the EU overplay their hand, then I think more and more people will say enough's enough. We're not going to get a deal. Can we just walk away?
So would you just say, right, cheerio, fellas, we're off tomorrow, or do you give them some time to think about the fact we're serious about walking away? How would, Rich, if you were in charge, how would you do it?
I would be publishing the plan for going to WTO rules in March 2019, within the next 3 or 4 weeks, so that everybody, both in this country, the people and businesses, know what the plan is, and so that the EU also knows that we are really serious about this. And I would be absolutely crystal clear to the EU. I would say, if we haven't agreed a transition deal by Christmas, then we're walking. And likewise, if we haven't agreed the heads of terms of a free trade deal by the end of Q1 next year, then we're walking, so that everybody knows exactly where they stand. And that way, you have clarity. Of course, there's going to be a bit of organising to do to get there, but everybody knows where they're going. What the EU are doing at the moment, and the real danger is that we fall into their trap, is that they're just stringing us along. And the longer they string us along, the more desperate we will get as we get closer to March 2019.
But if we were to follow your path, and it's interesting because the European Parliament are debating Brexit on Tuesday in Strasbourg, and there'll be the first vote in the European Parliament on Brexit. So we will get some flavour, Richard Tice, of whether the European Parliament wish to be cooperative or not. But if you listen to the great and the good, they tell us that if we were to leave without a deal, to go to World Trade Organization rules, that effectively we'd all need to wear a parachute because we'd be going off a cliff edge.
Yeah, the reality is there's no cliff edge, there's no cliff. Our view is there's a springboard of opportunity. And of course the EU, and in Parliament, I mean, you know better than anybody, they're bound to send a very tough signal. But the thing they fear most, and this is the biggest leverage we've got, is that we leave in March 19 and we pay nothing more. And legally, we're perfectly entitled to do that. Morally, as the Prime Minister said, we should look at paying some payments beyond that. But if we pay nothing from March 19 onwards, the EU has got a serious financial black hole. And that's our biggest negotiating strength.
But what happens to trade? I mean, we would go into a tariff regime with the European single market, and we would not have had time, presumably, to negotiate any of our own free trade deals around the rest of the world.
Well, that's the key thing, isn't it? I mean, let's remember, people make a big thing about tariffs, but, the average tariffs are about 3%. We've already had a currency devaluation of between 12 and 15%. So actually, businesses are doing very well, or exporters are making enhanced profits. And in terms of negotiating free trade deals, Liam Fox and his large department, hopefully, the discussions they're having, the working groups they've got, are progressing that as we speak. And if they're not, they need to be accelerating that, because that's the confidence that people want. And the other thing, of course, we can do if we leave and go straight to WTO is we can unilaterally reduce tariffs on lots of goods, particularly from third world countries, in particular in Africa, on goods that, we don't produce, oranges, coffee, things like that would actually reduce people's weekly bills in their supermarkets. And that's a great opportunity.
Now, I know listening to you, Richard, there'll be Remainers who will be listening with incredulity at what you're saying. But there'll also be a lot of Leavers listening to you saying, well, this is all very interesting and very positive, but why is it, Richard Tice, businessman and co-chair of Leave Means Leave, that if we listen to the British Chambers of Commerce, we listen to the Federation of Small Businesses, we listen to the Institute of Directors, the CBI, why is it that every voice of business we hear says actually the transition deal is absolutely necessary?
These are the same organisations that were a key part of Project Fear, and how wrong they've been. They said that, jobs would go, we're employing 400,000 more people than a year ago, property prices would fall, it would all be a disaster. Their credibility is the square root of zero. And it's interesting, isn't it? My fellow co-chair of Leave Means Leave is the former Director General of the British Chambers of Commerce, John Longworth. And there is no one who knows more about this subject and understands it better than him. So, I think that is a key signal. These people, they've got, they're looking after the vested interests of some of the big multinational corporations, for example, the CBI. And, they quite like protectionism. They don't want innovative new competitors starting up and taking their business.
I think, though, to persuade people of your case, you're going to need a lot more business voices than just two of you.
Correct. And of course, some of the greatest business voices are the likes of James Dyson, probably one of our greatest entrepreneurs ever, the likes of Tim Martin of Wetherspoons, the likes of Peter Hargreaves of Hargreaves Lansdowne, FTSE 100 Business, all of those great entrepreneurs who've started businesses from nothing. They are very comfortable about going to WTO. And I would say to listeners, you should have more confidence and comfort from those sort of entrepreneurs than from the corporate managers who've climbed the greasy corporate pole.
Okay, and you're coming to Manchester tomorrow. You've got a meeting tomorrow. I understand you've got a rather popular speaker coming to your event.
We have indeed. We've got Jacob Rees-Mogg as our key speaker at our event at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon, and the title of the speech is "The Threat to Brexit." And my concern is that the threat now is greater than ever. If we have a long...
Yep. He's gone. Richard Tice has gone, but I think we pretty much got there. Okay, so Richard Tice of Leave Means Leave with his co-chair John Longworth, they say we're wasting time. Really, Mrs May needs to give an ultimatum, a deadline, and be prepared to walk away. And that's what I'm asking you over the course of the next few minutes. Should Mrs May be prepared to walk away? If you think, yes, we really do need to get on with this, call me on 0345 6060 973. You can text to 84850. And, of course, you can tweet on @LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC. Matthew in Heathrow, good morning.
Morning, Nigel. Well, I didn't think I was going to say it, but I think, we are almost coming to the point that I think we're going to have to walk away. But because it sounds like that they want us to give everything and then eventually and don't even want to get to the trade, to talking about trade. But at least we've seen some of their cards. But I think once it grounds to a halt, we're going to have to walk away. But what we've got to do is actually revoke the Article 50 because we do need more time. It's going to take 3-4 years more. So we've got to revoke the Article 50. We can at least start doing some sort of controls, getting immigration in registering as they enter and leave, and then get ready for leaving without a trade deal in 3-4 years' time. We're still going to have to pay in, but at least we're going to have some sort of veto.
But do we really need to wait for 3 or 4 years to do this?
We're not ready for it. I mean, that is why they're trying to get this interim arrangement and everything where we're going to pay, we're going to do everything, but they don't even want to give us that. The only card we've got is to say, well, they've made it clear that they want to say, now they'll rather be better without us, but they still want us to get money from us. So,
okay. So Matthew, in essence, we prepare for no deal because they're not being cooperative, but we need time to do it, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. And
absolutely.
We get that time.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you. No, Matthew, thank you. Well, can I just say that to me, we are dealing with completely unreasonable people. Juncker, Barnier, Verhofstadt. I mean, they don't want a deal. They want us to be punished, and they're stringing us along, and we keep making concessions. Goodness me, the Florence speech made plenty of them. We're going to find out more on Tuesday. We'll get the tone of the European Parliament towards Brexit and a vote. Imagine spending years negotiating all of this, and then at the end of it, the European Parliament could veto the whole thing. We do have to be prepared to walk away. There's nothing particular to fear. It's not a cliff edge. Tariffs, as Richard Tice pointed out, tariffs of a few percent. Goodness me, the currency moves up and down that amount every single month. I'm Nigel Farage, live from Manchester from the Conservative Party conference, and the time now is 11:15. Does Mrs May need to be prepared to walk away? You know, she was very clear earlier in the year that no deal is better than a bad deal. The volume of that got turned down. We were beginning to hear a little bit of it again today, but nobody really thinks she's serious about it. If she was, I guess she wouldn't have gone for a transitional arrangement for around about 2 years, she says, which really means up until the next general election and beyond. And anyway, the case was being made by Richard Tice of Leave Means Leave, and he talked about the fact Jacob Rees-Mogg was coming to speak about saving Brexit at that meeting tomorrow. And we've had a few of you on today saying that you think Jacob Rees-Mogg is wonderful. John and Liz have a different point of view. John and Liz text and they say, Jacob Rees-Mogg leading the Tories, bring it on. It will be like watching Charles Hawtrey in a carry-on film and will finally remove the last obstacle to Jezza in government. Let's all keep our fingers crossed. So there's always more than one opinion about these things. Is it time to walk away? Adrian in Finchley, what do you think about the government's strategy and indeed the way they're being treated by Barnier, Juncker and the others?
Hi there. First of all, let me say I'm a great supporter of yours. I used to belong to UKIP, but I left when you had all the leadership problems, but I think I'm about to rejoin.
Well, that's party politics for you, isn't it? I mean, I've been here, Adrian, talking about problems in the Tory party. It happens in all parties. It's politics, you know.
Exactly. But I don't think she should walk away. I want to know why there isn't a lot more discussion about when we're going to get paid out. If Europe, whatever you want to call it, EU, EC, is so great, so marvellous, so big, so strong, where's our share when we do go?
Well, I mean, actually, we do have about 9 billion sterling invested through the European Investment Bank, and you could argue that the £180 billion net that we've paid in since we joined, that we sort of, you know, we're shareholders in the buildings and the assets. You could argue that, Andrew, but I don't think that argument would get you very far. But okay. So,
it's Adrian, by the way, but why isn't there a lot more discussion on it?
Well, there's no discussion on it because the British government have accepted, in principle, that we are going to be paying something to leave. That's why.
Completely stupid. Just completely ridiculous.
And what about trade?
So why can't you, people like you, Rees-Mogg, get back into it and push those points?
Well, those points can be pushed, but so you would hang around and not walk away just to make sure that...
I would switch. I would hang around, make sure I'm still on the board of management, if you like, the board of directors, and push my point. Not how much am I going to pay in, but how much are you going to pay me out?
OK, we will pass, Adrian, that suggestion on to the Prime Minister. Different tack. I might try it with Juncker on Tuesday because I'm going to be there. How much are you going to pay us, Jean-Claude, and see how we go? Now, the big breaking news story this morning is that Catalonia's independence referendum has begun in chaotic fashion with clashes occurring as police attempt to prevent the vote from taking place. The Spanish government has pledged to stop a poll that was declared illegal by the country's constitutional court. Police officers are preventing people from voting, seizing ballot papers and boxes at stations. In the regional capital of Barcelona, witnesses said police had fired rubber bullets during pro-referendum protests. 38 people have been injured, most of them lightly, say Catalan emergency services. The Catalan leader has condemned this as unjustifiable violence. How is the day unfolding? Well, we've got Louise on the line. Louise, good morning.
Good morning. Hi there.
Hi there. Tell us, whereabouts in Catalonia are you?
I'm in a provincial town, Santaloni. It's about 40 kilometres from Barcelona.
Okay.
I'm at a poll station right now, and the people are terrified, basically. I mean, we're all stood up queuing to vote, but everyone's absolutely, shaking, really.
So have you in a sort of smaller town outside the big city, have you seen evidence of the police trying to close the polling station down?
Well, I spent the night in the polling station to keep it open.
Right.
This morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, the Catalan police came round and they tried to seal it off, but they couldn't because there were too many people in the building. So at the moment, we've just got Catalan police here actually being very pacific and trying to keep the peace. But we've just had a military police helicopter flying over, which means that they won't be taking very long to come here. And having seen the shocking images from Barcelona, you can imagine we're very frightened. I mean, I had my 2 kids with me, and I've just taken them off to stay with a friend because it's definitely not a place for children to be.
Right, and you are going to stand your ground, Louise, are you?
Yeah, God, yeah. I mean, we've got to help these people. I mean, these people are so pacific and organised and democratic, and they're facing such a dictatorial government. I mean, you can imagine these things happening in somewhere like China, not in Europe. Do you know what I mean?
Isn't the truth, Louise, that actually the concept of Catalan separation is still very much in a minority position?
Yeah, I mean, but the question at the moment is not about independence or no independence. The question now is about human rights being violated and terrible abuses being committed. I mean, yeah, I think that if there was a referendum allowed, well, if a referendum had been allowed 3 months ago, I'm sure the non-independent activists would have won. You know, I don't think it wouldn't have been. It wouldn't be.
So why,
no.
Given that arithmetic, and by the way, I'm not condoning the way the Spanish government have behaved at all. I mean, it's supposed to be a modern democracy, although I've seen the way it treats the Gibraltarian border at times, and I've shaken my head and wondered. But and also the fact they can put you in prison and leave you there for a year without charging you. I mean, it hasn't fully recovered from its past Spain. It seems to me at times.
No, it's taken a big step back, to be honest.
And it probably has, and I won't be going to Marbella very, very soon after this, clearly. But Louise, tell me something. Given that those that want separation for Catalonia know that at the moment they're in a minority position, why have they quite willfully tried to push something through that they know will lead to confrontation?
They just want to give their opinion, basically.
Okay.
They you know, that's what they want to do. They want to express their opinion. They want to let Europe know what they think. They don't want to be kept quiet all the time. I mean, they keep trying to negotiate with Madrid, and Madrid keeps saying, no, we don't want to talk with this particular government, with past governments they have.
And you obviously feel very strongly about their cause, Louise.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've lived here for 17 years.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of friends here.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're lovely people. You know, they're not, I mean... You know.
No. I mean, I was in Barcelona. Not just a few months ago. It's a very dynamic, successful place. Louise, thank you very much for giving us that assessment of what you're seeing there. Small town, 40 kilometres outside of Barcelona. And Louise, stay safe, please. Stay safe. Thank you. Thank you for telling us what's going on. Fascinating, disturbing situation. I'll be interested to see what points about this get raised in the European Parliament next week and how much criticism there is of the behaviour of the Spanish government. But back for the last few minutes to the question of should Mrs May be prepared to walk away? Jeff in St Albans is going to give us the definitive answer on this. I know he is.
Oh, how do you do, Nigel? And thank you very much for all the good and hard work you've done. Thank you, splendid.
You're very sweet.
I think yes, she's going to have to, because income tax was 200 years ago a temporary measure. well, it's not a bad tax, but it's temporary, and it's gone on and on and on.
Right.
The Emperor's Clothes, which was a children's story, went on and on and on. I don't want to get to 2019 or 21. I mean, I'm 52. I don't want to be here when I'm 82, and the thing's still going on. And it's not
So do you, I mean, basically, you think she's just kicking the can down the road, don't you?
I do, because I think she should never have called that election, in the recent one, in the way that she did. I really hope that Jacob and others give a good speech tomorrow. I'm very pleased about Henry Bolton, supporting UKIP.
Well, we're going to talk to him very, very shortly, Jeff. But, Jeff, you know, OK, in your view, we've got to stop the nonsense, we've got to put a deadline on this. But but would Theresa May herself ever do that?
No, this is where we have to be very, very careful, because I'm terrified that if they were to get rid of her prematurely, it could give Corbyn an opportunity that would just, God knows what country would I emigrate to. It's just frightening.
OK, Jeff, you feel pretty strongly about it. Thank you for your call. And a last call on this from Dave in Croydon. Dave, good morning.
Hi, great to talk to you. Look, any seasoned business person will tell you that this situation in the Brexit situation is no different to negotiating any business deal. And most successful business people will tell you that to get a deal, the best deal for yourself or the best deal for your company or the best deal for your country is based on having the strongest hand. And I'm just amazed that our politicians have been unable to come to terms with the fact that unless we do pre-deals with the many companies, the many countries out there, whatever that means in any form and however they've got to do that, we won't have a back position. And if you don't have a back position to revert to, which is a strong position, you're never going to win, and you're always going to be on the back foot and the weak foot.
Which is exactly where we are, Dave, isn't it?
Well, we are. We're trying to be nice and play ball and do all the politically correct things, which is very admirable, but it will not get us the best deal.
Could it also be, Dave, that people like our Prime Minister have never been in business negotiations? It's not their background, it's not what they've done.
No, they don't understand. What they understand is very strongly, they understand diplomacy. Unfortunately, you don't understand diplomacy. I say fortunately.
Well, sometimes.
It's unfortunate.
Dave,
sometimes you've got to say it how it is.
Absolutely. Dave in Croydon, thank you. The voice of a businessman. Be pragmatic. Have a fallback position. Say it, mean it, and they'll probably come to you. I'm Nigel Farage, live from Manchester from the Conservative Party conference. The time now is 11:30. UKIP were in Torquay at the weekend, and on Friday afternoon they announced their new leader. It is one Henry Bolton, former soldier and police officer, and he made his maiden speech as UKIP leader lunchtime yesterday. Here's a snippet of what he said.
The Prime Minister called the last general election, in her own words, to strengthen my hand in the Brexit negotiations. She claimed that she offered strong and stable leadership. Well. Unfortunately, the country and many of our previous supporters trusted her. So, 14 months after the referendum, a question for you. Have we come any closer to regaining control of our borders?
Well, joining me live is UKIP's new leader, Henry Bolton. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, I think there's some different counts on this. Some say you're the fourth leader in the space of a year, and others think it could be with interims the fifth. I don't know. But tell me something. Why are you going to last longer than the previous three or four?
Well, Nigel, I'm going to say that I think I've got a bit of a track record for endurance. I've stuck the course with a lot of things where others have not. I mean, different environments, perhaps. I stayed the course in Northern Helmand when the US Marine Corps rotated their battle groups 5 times whilst I was there. I stayed there throughout. I don't give up very easily. So this is not taking on the Taliban. It's a tough job, but I'm certainly here for as long as it takes.
And Henry, I mean, let's be frank. You're not a known public figure. I mean, tell us who you are in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm a former tank soldier, former TA infantry officer, commanded intelligence units in Bosnia. I've done ceasefire monitoring as chief of operations for international ceasefires. I've advised heads of government on humanitarian crisis management, and I've helped some 14 governments to at a strategic cross-governmental level secure their borders. So international diplomacy, security, policing, and military. So I'm 54 years old. I have a lovely wife who's Russian. So if the FBI want to accuse me of having links with Russia, yes, indeed, I have. And I have 3 daughters, a 32-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Why would anybody with that sort of resume want to get involved in leading UKIP? I mean, it is a very, very difficult job. It doesn't make you rich. I mean, what on earth motivated you? Because a lot of candidates stood. There were about 11 people who put their names forward to be UKIP leader, and none of us knew who was going to win. There was a favourite with the bookies, and we'll come to her perhaps in a moment. But what motivated you to want to do this?
Nigel, I have seen where we're going with Brexit, and Brexit is going to. Things don't end with us leaving the European Union. That is the first step on taking control of our own destiny as a nation in every respect, and I just see it going wrong. And I looked at the people, and some listeners may be aware that I was probably the last candidate to put my name forward. And I looked at the other candidates, and there's some excellent people there. But I thought if UKIP is not making itself an effective pro-Brexit opposition and is not engaging powerfully in this debate, then actually we are not contributing towards launching ourselves in the way that I described. Okay. And I don't see the government doing it. It's absolutely necessary. So I stepped into the breach because it is a job that has to be done, not just for the party, but for the nation.
Now, the question I'm going to ask you now, Henry, is a question I'm asking also to everybody out there on LBC listening or watching, and I want, after Henry's finished, you to respond to me on this. Has UKIP served its purpose, or does it have a future?
Oh, it's absolutely got a future, Nigel. You know, a lot of people have said to me over the weekend, a lot of journalists, well, they've asked me exactly that question. And my answer is, in a sense, what I've just said. It is about launching how we deal with this launches the nation into its future. And that future continues, of course. And what I've been saying to people is it's not just about leaving the European Union. It's about having the ability to give people in our communities a voice. There are so many people out there who are ignored. They're effectively disenfranchised, whether it's local planning permissions that they express concerns over and nobody's listening, whether it's about healthcare, schools, policing. The people just simply aren't being heard anymore. And I think for me, launching the country into its future is about making the country an optimistic and confident nation, and you can't have an optimistic nation if its citizens are being ignored.
Now, one note, Henry, of confusion. One note of confusion on this is part of your speech was about the levels of immigration and what was happening to the culture of this country, and what you said appeared to be quite strong stuff, and yet you've also said in a Sky News interview that you didn't believe in immigration caps. So can you please just square that circle for me? Because I think people might be a little bit confused seeing those two things.
Yeah, no, I mean, we need to be clever about our immigration cap. An arbitrary figure is not helpful. What we need to understand is that we can only assimilate a certain number of people, and we need to look carefully at what that is. And 1 year may be different to the next, but what we must absolutely ensure is that our communities, our public services are not in any way overwhelmed by this, and that we're not creating a concern in the country that immigration is actually swamping our own culture.
But if we don't have a cap, who sets the limit for who can come in and who can't?
No, sorry, Nigel. It's not that I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a cap. What I'm saying is that having just throwing an arbitrary figure out there of 50,000, 10,000, 0 is difficult. I mean, if you say 0, then of course the 0 figure is influenced by the number of people leaving as well.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But I mean, but if I'm a voter, I'm saying, well, Henry, if you go into coalition government, what number are you going to be fighting for? I mean, where do you see the British population going?
No, the British I've already said, I think publicly prior to this weekend, that actually I want to see the immigration actually halted until we can understand exactly how we're going to manage it going forward. So at this stage, that's what I'd like to see.
Right. So you halt it. Fine. Yeah. Okay. Understood. That's a bit clearer.
That's the net
for all of us. And lastly, Henry Bolton, new leader of UKIP, Anne-Marie Walters, who stood on a very strong anti-Islam ticket, and I think that is a fair interpretation. She said the religion was evil. She appeared certainly with Nick Ferrari here on LBC and said some very strong things about the religion. And you'd said in the run-up to this ballot that you feared if she won that UKIP would become the UK Nazi Party. Did you not?
Words to that effect, yes, it was interpreted that way. I said National Socialist direction. Yeah.
So what happens now to Anne-Marie Walters now that you're leader?
Well, that's up to Anne-Marie Waters. I mean, our constitution, as you know, Nigel, is quite clear on prescribed organisations, affiliation with particular individuals, and so on. And anybody in the party who's in breach of that, I would like to see dealt with in accordance with the constitution.
Would it, in your view, as the new leader of UKIP, would it be useful for Anne-Marie Walters and her campaign team, or some of them at least, to stay members of UKIP?
Not if they're going to continue with that rhetoric. No, that wouldn't be useful. No.
Okay.
That's
okay. That's Henry Bolton, thank you very much indeed. Well, that was Henry Bolton, folks, and it is a question. It is a question because at the general election just gone, I don't think UKIP was seen to be very relevant by people, but suddenly the Labour Party have completely U-turned on their commitments. I mean, completely. No longer are they talking about controlling borders. No longer are they saying we should leave the single market. And the Tories, well, at best, are kicking the Brexit issue into the long grass. And all the while, open door immigration continues. Is there now space for UKIP on the political battlefield, or is it a spent force and past its time? Please let me know what you think by calling 0345 60 60 973. I'm Nigel Farage, live from Manchester from the Conservative Party conference. The time now is 11:45. Well, you've heard Henry Bolton there, the new leader of UKIP, telling us a little bit about his life, a bit about his ideas. I thought the sort of big takeouts were that he spent his life in the military, in the police, involved with security issues. He's not been in elected politics at all before. He thinks we should halt immigration for a period of time to work out where we are, to then put a plan in place. And when I asked him about Anne-Marie Walters, who came second in this contest, whether she should remain a member and supporter of the party, he said he basically didn't like her rhetoric. So, under Henry Bolton, does UKIP now have a future? Have the Labour Party U-turning, the Conservatives dilly-dallying and kicking the can down the road? Have they now left a political space that UKIP can occupy? Or is it, as other commentators would say, a busted flush? I'm going to ask Anne-Marie in Chichester what she thinks of that. Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Nigel. I wasn't too impressed with what he said. His resume in his military and his police sounded good, but the fact that he left out the fact that he'd been in the Liberal Democrats, I think he'd actually stood for them at one time, and that he'd worked for the EU, why did he not mention these two things?
No, it's a fair point. And he did. And in fact, Anne-Marie, I can tell you that I first really got to know him on Eurostar, going to Brussels when I was going to the European Parliament, and he was working. He was working with the department there involved with common foreign security and defence policy. That is absolutely true. But then the fact that one has done that in the past doesn't mean you can't look at it and completely say, I reject this and here's why, does it?
No, it doesn't. But I'm just worried that he's going to prove to be another enemy within, like Douglas Carswell, because I want to join you again, and I'm not so sure. OK, right. So you what you're looking for, Anne-Marie, is a bit more frankness from Henry Bolton about his... He stood for the Liberal Democrats in 2005 in Surrey, did he not? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And he worked for the European Commission. Right, Anne-Marie? No. Actually, thank you for your call. Fair point, actually, that a lot of UKIP voters will say, well, how on earth do you go from being a Lib Dem to being UKIP, and how do you go from the European Commission to wanting to get Britain into a position where there's no transition deal at all, and you leave as quickly as you can? Jean in Boreham Wood, do you think there's space for UKIP and Henry Bolton?
Thank you very much for allowing me to come on to your show, Mr.
Sure.
Farage.
Hi.
I was very interested to hear what Henry Bolton had to say,
Yep.
Purely because, as a UKIP member, I didn't know who on earth he was. I met all the other candidates, no sign of him. So therefore I was very interested in what he had to say. My concern is with UKIP now that they have now turned themselves into just another mainstream political party. I listened to what he had to say about immigration. It seemed very wishy-washy. He didn't seem to be sure exactly what he was saying.
So, Jean, just 1 second, please. Do you think saying we should call a halt to immigration until we sort out where we are is wishy-washy?
Well, first of all, correct me if I'm wrong, he was saying we shouldn't put a cap on. Then he was saying, yes, we should put a cap on, but we can't say what the figure should be, which sounds very much like the Tories. No, I believe that we should stop immigration at the moment, you know, and we should look at the whole situation of what's happening in the country. I mean, there's a very, very serious situation going on, and the majority of people in Britain recognise it.
So, Jean, is your criticism, in short, because we haven't got much time...
Sure.
Is your criticism, in short, that he sort of sounds a bit too establishment? Is that what you're saying?
He's exactly establishment, and I think the reason he's been put in place with UKIP is party before people. I've ripped up my UKIP membership, as many of us, as I've discovered on social media, have done, purely because... the other thing that annoyed me was I actually feel that a lot of what Anne-Marie Walters had to say was very relevant. I've listened to her. I've actually spoken to her personally. This woman is very articulate. She's very reasonable.
The fact that somebody's articulate...
Dislikes Islam, the ideology. And to turn
is it right, Jean? Jean, is it right... To
turn round and accuse us, as he did, you know, saying that we were nothing more than Nazis, etc. I resent that. I'm a patriot. I'm a British patriot, like 17.4 plus.
Jean, is Islam evil in your view?
Sorry?
Is the religion of Islam evil in your view?
It is. A religion that promotes killing, that promotes stoning, that promotes grooming and raping. 14.
Are there, Jean? I mean, there have been some appalling things that have been done in the name of Islam, and some appalling things have happened in this country in the name of Islam. But do you not think, when you say the whole religion's evil, that you might perhaps be in danger of alienating hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people of Muslim faith in Britain who actually are integrated and living in our communities?
Hold on. That is a typical argument that's always espoused. Oh, there are moderate Muslims. I'm sorry. Yeah. Have you read the Quran? Have you read the Hadith? Have you read the history of Muhammad? I have. Now, to me, I don't care how moderate you say you are. If you follow, and they do, I mean, these terrorists, they're called extremists. Actually, they're good Muslims. They follow the Quran exactly as it says. Now, Margaret
Well,
turn around and try to excuse...
I am going, Jean, to have to end this call on time constraints. But Majid Nawaz is up, actually, after the news at 12. Please, if you haven't listened to him on LBC, do, because there is somebody, who is making a very strong argument that not everybody who follows that religion is bad. But, Jean, you hold your point of view. You hold it very, very strongly indeed. And don't forget, my auction for a private lunch is still running on lbc.co.uk. But it could now be that it's up in the thousands of pounds and it's out of your price range. Alternatively, you can buy tickets to watch me on stage, because on the 10th of January, it's a Wednesday, I'll be appearing at the Hippodrome Casino in London. And again, it's for Global's Make Some Noise charity, raising money for people, disabled people, young people who need just a little bit of help in life. And you can join me by choosing tickets for this. They vary between £85 or £125, depending where you're sitting. Just go to lbc.co.uk. And Paul in York, I'm going to ask you, were you impressed with Bolton? What future UKIP?
Yeah, brilliant. I think it's good future. If he can command a bunch of squaddies, you'll have no problem with the NEC.
Right.
He's definitely a team's player, and he's got a tremendous amount of people on his side who are talented. My choice was Ben Walker, but again, another talented, if you like, forces man. And it's what you need. Can I just mention, though, Nigel, I am glad, I am relieved that Anne-Marie Walters didn't get in, because she doesn't represent the vast majority of views.
No, well, I have to say, Paul, that I have to say honestly that I thought Anne-Marie Walters' politics was really very extreme indeed. I do understand there's a problem. I do understand there's terrorism. I do understand the cover-ups that have taken place in Rotherham and elsewhere. I understand it. But to effectively condemn an entire religion, to turn UKIP into a political party based on religion, I think would have been a complete and utter catastrophe. Paula, thank you for your call. Well, just a few quick thoughts there on the new UKIP leader, Henry Bolton. He's certainly got a big, big job to do, and it won't be very easy. Well, OK, don't forget, lbc.co.uk is where you can find the terms and conditions, either for that lunch or indeed for coming along to the London Hippodrome on the 10th of January. I'm Nigel Farage. I've been live from Manchester, from the Conservative Party. I'm back tomorrow evening from 7 p.m. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, it's Alex Salmond. But up next, it's Majid Nawaz.
Thanks, Nigel. I'm former Lib Dem. Shall I take over your party as well?
Well, you never know.
All right, thank you very much.